Hello, my name is Clayton Herendine. This is my final project discussion presentation for Ms. Jennifer Farney's Math 107 Math and Society course. So I initially chose to work on math and music because I'm an artist of sorts, and I sing with the Portland Gay Men's Chorus. So music is a big part of my life. It's an interest of mine in this regard, so I just thought I would expand my horizons and try to understand a little bit more about what I'm doing in music and how it relates to the whole world. Um, I'd like to start by mentioning that through my research process, I had talked about interviewing a member of the course who might have been more mathematically inclined, and I did get to speak to some people about that, but inevitably I didn't get the detail or extent of the information I was looking for with that, so I used other resources instead, so I just wanted to point that out. So some of the terms that I'm going to be discussing, and actually let me also say I apologize first because my notes are over here to my right, so I apologize if I reference them frequently, but I'll try and make that brief. But some of the terms I'm going to be discussing with this is going to be wave, first of all, which are the vibrations produced that are pushed through the air whenever something musically is vibrated, and it like the strings on a ukulele. So when you hear that, the wave is basically the amount of vibrations being pushed through the air causing the sound. Pitch, it's a little difficult to explain in words, but essentially it's the instrument that you're using's basic range. Our book uses an example of like a tuba has a lower register than a flute. One sounds lower than the other, tuba, flute. I use this a lot in chorus as well. We have 4 sections of singers, bass singers, singing a lower register than myself, who's a first tenor, and we're the higher registers in the men's chorus. So it's just, it can follow the same notes, but just have lower octaves, lower registers. Frequency would be the rate at which the vibrations from the wave make pulses, manipulating the sound. And then harmonics are basically the way that sounds harmonize together. Basically how different notes played together can be pleasing. It creates harmony. So basically with harmonics, when they're creating an instrument, say like the ukulele, they arrange the strings specifically to be able to create those harmonic sounds that all kind of go together. So I mean, if you just strum it once, I mean, you can hear that all the strings are obviously different sounds, but they make one complete note together. Furthermore, they put specific notes that sound good together in the strings. So I mean, this is G, C, E, A, and you can play any of these strings together, and they harmonize together. First, delving into a little bit of why I wanted to do my project on music, you can't do that without discussing Mr. Pythagoras, who basically started all of these equations and thought processes into how music and math relate. So I mean, one of the things that I apologize. Yeah, so I mean, Pythagoras basically discovered that different frequencies are caused by different types of sounds. I read a story where he noticed that when a blacksmith was pounding out metal, it made a different sound depending on how heavy the hammer was. So then he just started basically by looking into weight and how the different weights compare to the different sounds and why it creates different vibrations and different movement through the air. So going in correlation with all of that, when we talk about frequency, again, that's discussing basically the vibration, and so we'll talk about the ukulele since that's what I'm using as my example. So those are the vibrations in the string, and the rate at which they cycle up and down, cycles per second. So if you think about it in that regard, as far as the vibrations pushing the pockets of air around, you know that when you get a higher sound, that means that the frequency is a lot faster, that the cycles per minute or I'm sorry, cycles per second are vibrating much quickly. It's pushing the air away from it at a higher vibration, and therefore it's a higher sound. It's just trying to push that out as fast as it can, and it just goes ee. So the opposite then would be the lower register, which has slower frequency, slower vibrations, and so it's not pushing the air around as much. It's got more time to get it out, and so then sound ends up being a little bit lower. So the cycles per second are important when understanding frequency. What I'd like to do is kind of go off of, our original textbook's example of using the middle C note, which is that. Middle C is 260 cycles per minute. So right now, or per second, I'm sorry. So right now, as I'm strumming that string, it's vibrating at a rate of, it's going up and down 260 times in 1 second. As you move along the C chord, I mean, if I press down on here, that slows down the vibrations and makes it, or I'm sorry, increases the vibrations. So anytime you take, as a chord's initial, like C's 260 cycles per second, the next octave you go up, when you multiply that basically by the amount of the previous. So if this is 260 cycles per second, and I go up the next note, then that's 520 cycles per second. And then of course then the next octave up, excuse me, I didn't, it's 1040 cycles per second at this stage. So, the more I go up, multiply by 2 every time, and that's how you calculate the cycles per second. Yeah, so then, I mean, just to give another example, like A would be 220 cycles per second, and then 440, so you're just multiplying by 2 every time. It goes higher and higher. Now, since we already know that C is 260 CPS, I've been wanting to kind of direct my studies into learning about fourth notes, because that's what comes up a lot in choral notes, the 3/4 and the 4/4. I wasn't sure what that was initially. So I kind of delved into that a little bit more, and so if we're going back to discussing the C chord, and I'm going to kind of strum now instead of just picking the individual chords. So that's C, harmonizing with all the rest of the strings. And then the F chord, which would be the 4th step, that's 4/3, that is increased by 4/3 the original note we started on in frequency. So if you multiply, if you take that into account, you multiply the amount of cycles per second, so the 260 on our original C chord, when you go to the F chord, what you're basically doing is multiplying the ratio of the frequency. So basically the 4/3 increase that F went from C in cycles per second, you multiply that by C chord's cycles per second, and you determine that F chord is 347 cycles per second. So we know that when I play that, it's the rotation, the frequency is going at 347. So some of the things that I had not really an issue with discussing or going over this issue, but I mean, I just wanted to get the general information down on how to improve my musical skills. So I mean, this is a pretty basic understanding, but again, I mean, it's helping me kind of understand some of the symbols a little bit better. So when I was talking earlier about, the C chord and the F chord and how that goes up by 4/3, increases in frequency, we know that a fourth, according to our information in the text, is 5 seminotes from the original note. So, I mean, if we look at the C string, and, you know, the frets basically count as the seminotes. So we're going up, oops, going up by 5. Sorry. So I was just basically demonstrating the similarities in the sound, because we know that if we're just doing a regular C chord, then 5 seminotes up, and it alters. So again, I just wanted to kind of review these general issues for my betterment as far as my musical career in the chorus, being a part of a professional group. It does help to kind of get some education on it. Essentially, since it's a professional group, not everybody learns on the same level, but we all, we all have our different degrees, and I just, want to know more. One of the possible issues that I was considering that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, that I wasn't sure whether or not I can find an easy answer about with this project, was why some corresponding notes sound pleasing together. I mean, it seems to me like that's just a human perception. Like there's no equation that could explain that any further. So that was just one issue I came across that I wasn't really able to answer. It's that Pythagoras just kind of discovered that some notes sound good together, and they happen to have these separations in frequency that tend to have a balance. So I mean, wherever those balances are, that's where we tend to perceive the sound to sound better. But other than that, I have no idea where that perception would come from. But I did enjoy learning about this and getting a little more experience on my own musical abilities and how I utilize them in my life. So I'm definitely going to take this information and study my choral notes and try to compare what I've learned to what I use on a weekly basis. So yeah, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy. Have a good day.